funny you say that. That's my father, man.
What?
Yeah, that's my
You're
father.
joking. You're joking now.
I'm not joking.
Welcome to the podcast. You are sideways.
John Fiore in the house.
You are sideways. Oh, now you're
Yo.
What's
What's
up?
What's up?
Oh, that's crazy effects going on.
Do you like my deep voice?
Yeah, it's very attractive. I like it.
It's making our voices screwed up, so shut it off.
Oh, okay. My bad. Okay. Oh, we're back. Regular voices. Oh, that's cool. I can alter your voices as well. So I will do that
Right on, man.
randomly in the podcast here. Johnny, what is up, my friend? Long time no see. What's up? How you been? What have you been doing?
Good, man. I'm just trying to get through this quarantine. I've been practicing a lot. I'm teaching online lessons, guitar lessons, trying to make ends meet, you know. How about you guys? What have you been up to?
Nice, dude. Nice. You're looking at it.
I got furloughed until June 26th, so I'll be home collecting dust until then.
Yeah, hey, dude, that's all right. It's a good time. I feel like, honestly, self-reflection. I feel like there's a lot of things I want to do on the other side of this, you know?
Yeah, man. I think a lot of people might be thinking, a lot of people might be thinking that same thing, just like when this is all over, kind of like a restart, refresh kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely, man.
You hit it hard.
Yeah, definitely. As far as the band goes, I've been like dying to get out there and play, you know. It's such it's a state of flux where you just don't know when you can get out there and play again. Yeah, as far as the band goes, man, we got the bus, the Kooky bus. So
I heard that. Yeah. Derek was telling me about that. You guys got a bus?
Yeah, so we got a school bus. And you guys got to come out on it, man. We'll jam on it, maybe play some shows.
Yeah.
When this is all over, let's definitely do that.
Absolutely. So honestly, that's why we got the bus, and then this happened, it seemed like. So we had a bunch of shows, I'm sure you guys did too, that got canceled. We had some New York dates, Delaware. We got some in South Carolina that I'm assuming if this keeps going that it will be canceled. But I want to hit the road on that bus, man.
Dude, that's gonna be sick.
One of my students told me they heard a theory that social distancing was going to be enforced till 2022. I was like, what?
Actually, I think our guitar player, John, said the same thing. He was like, I didn't hear we're not going to be out there until 2021. And I was like, where are you hearing this from?
Now it's 2022. Who knows? Maybe this is the new norm, and we're not going to, you know what I mean? This is the new, this is what it's going to be. This is what life is now. It's just you stay inside. It's 1984, man.
Oh, man.
All over again.
I mean, it's definitely a sign of the future, though. Even what we're doing now, the Zoom and the online lessons, for me, I feel like this is definitely going to translate into the future.
Here's a weird thing I'm going to ask you, John. Have you seen Have you seen The Sopranos?
I have.
Okay, so I've seen it all the way through like 5 times. I watched it with my wife all the way through to show her, and now we were so bored, we were like, let's just watch it again. So now we're watching it again, and I noticed one of the characters, his name is Gigi Sistone. He's a captain. His name is John Fiore.
It's funny you say that. That's my father, man.
What?
Yeah, that's my
You're
father.
joking. You're joking right now.
I'm not joking. It's one of those. I swear to God on my life, man. It's one of those things I don't really bring it up randomly because I feel kind of like a douche. You know what I mean?
Holy shit.
Oh my God. Dude.
Yeah. It's funny because people have said that in the past, and obviously the show is how many years old now. So at the time it was, everyone kind of knew who knew me, but now it's like it's in the hindsight. I don't really go around saying it, but yeah, man. That's
I apologize if I brought this up and you didn't want to talk about it.
No,
I thought it was just a coincidence.
Actually,
I'm like,
the real astonishment is actually good for the podcast.
Oh my God, it's so crazy. I'm just I was like, it's kind of funny, stupid thing I'm gonna say because I saw the name John. There's a lot of Fiores out there, I'm sure, because Italian last names, And oh my God, I'm blown away right now.
Yeah, and he's done it. Like, acting ever since I was a kid, and that's what he does. He's been in a good amount of things, man. Like,
no kidding. That's awesome.
Yeah, like original Law and Order and a lot of stuff. You know, I won't go around naming it up, but
no,
yeah,
do it, man. We don't mind. I was gonna say, John, have you ever gotten into acting?
Not so much. I mean, I definitely think with that artistic mindset, maybe from that influence on me, I don't know. But as far as like a music video or trying to pursue music, but as far as acting, I haven't really had too much of an urge to do it myself, unless it's, hey, let's shoot a music video and act in it.
Quick follow-up question. Have you ever met James Gandolfini?
No, unfortunately not. Unfortunately, no. But my dad,
that would have been cool.
They used to stay with him, and obviously he was, he wasn't a main guy, but he had a decent role in the first couple seasons, and so he knew all those guys, and that he still keeps in touch with some of them if they do like a signing or something. You know, they'll do that, and they did a Sopranos Con.
Con. Yeah, I watched the whole YouTube video on it. Yeah,
yeah. I think where was that? New Jersey or something? I don't know.
New Jersey, yeah. It was last year actually, in November.
Well, they just had that you've seen the new podcast with
Michael. Michael Imperioli. Yeah,
I heard about it. I haven't listened to it, but is it any good? You guys listen to it?
Yeah, they go through episode by episode. They're only on like episode 4 of season 1, but it's Michael Imperioli who plays Christopher and Steven Sharippa who plays Bobby Bacala. And it's really good. It's entertaining, especially for somebody like me who's I'm a humongous fan of the show. So
great show, man. We to this day, there's sometimes, like, aside from my father, just I'll watch it or catch a rerun or find myself on YouTube. It's one of the best shows of all time, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm still shocked right now that I made this really odd connection. I didn't mean to do this. I just thought it was a joke. Like, hey, you get the same name, but in a million years, I wouldn't have guessed that.
It's funny. My boss, Ed, in the North Andover, one day he said something similar. He was like, hey, I was watching Law and Order the other day. There's this actor that kind of looks like you. And I was like, it's funny you say that.
Yeah. Your band, Kooked Out.
Yes.
So if I recall correctly, I thought at one point you told me that, because I had recognized the word cooked, and I was like, oh, that's actually a really good David Bowie song called Kooks. Was that where you got the name from, or?
No, so this is a decent story, I feel like. Have you ever seen the Kai the Hitchhiker surfer video?
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
do yourself a favor. Look up Kai the Hitchhiker. So basically the story of Kai the Hitchhiker is he was a hitchhiker who had to kill some guy with like a hatchet to rescue some other person. And they do a news interview with him. And it's probably like 5 minutes of gold.
Oh, does he have long hair and he's kind of like out of it?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And he was saying, in one of the things he was describing, the guy he had to kill with the hatchet, he was all cooped out, man. He was all cooped out saying this. So that's kind of cool. So I typed it in, and I guess there's like an affiliation with surfing terms too, cooped out. But I mean, I got it from the video, to be honest with you.
So I was doing some research, and I saw on Spotify you guys have an EP from 2016. Some really, really good songs in there. The Wipeout cover is really, really fun. Now, let me ask you, when you did Wipeout, who was doing the scream in the beginning? Was that you?
Yeah, I did that. And then we crunched like a water bottle, put some delay on it. That surfing board, I don't know if it's a surfboard, it's supposed to sound like it's breaking or whatever, but that sound.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Honestly,
really
out of
cool.
that EP, I mean, that's the only cover on it. I gotta say that's my favorite track on it, because we recorded that one entirely in Chris's basement, and I think it had just the quality's not great, but the energy is good in it. And the other songs, we went to an actual studio to do most of it. And I just, for some reason, it feels a little flat to me. So I'm not super proud of that album. I think the songs, if we reinterpret them, maybe put it on like a full-length album or something, but it's just it drags a little to me.
Well, that was my next question, actually, because I know out of all the bands that I know personally, I think you guys are the absolute number one, the most active band.
Yeah.
You guys book so many shows, you guys play so often, that it's almost hard to not know what you guys are up to, which is really, really cool. But you guys have an amazing energy as well. And I was wondering, you guys have plans to make a new? I'm assuming you are, but would you have plans to make a full length album soon, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the plan as of now. So I just actually bought a new laptop recently, and the guys have their own. And I know you do a lot of recording yourselves, right? With your records. Yeah,
most of the time we'll do it ourselves. Like Mariano, we did ourselves.
Yeah, it sounded great, man. Like
thanks,
listening
man.
to those songs, and I listened to something that we paid a ton of money to do, and I'm not even happy with it.
We did that too. We spent a lot of money. Well, everything's relative, but we did an EP.
Right.
It definitely wasn't cheap by any means.
I think I think our problem was we spent like 13 hours over 2 days to record an EP, and it was so rushed for us. It was our fault.
Yeah, and it's super stressful.
Yeah.
So in the second time around for the full length, we decided I already had a bunch of mics. John bought an interface, and we just set up in his attic, and we just did track by track, and we mixed. It took us like 6 months to make the album.
Yeah,
and thanks, man. And we just mixed back and forth, tested it in the car, the phones test, all that good stuff, and you know how it is. Just it's tedious and stressful, but it's so much more affordable. And like I said, there's definitely pros and cons, but doing it yourself is good because you can you can really take your time. Because the problem with the first time we did the EP in the studio, we always kept changing our minds. It was like a week later, I wish I did that.
Right.
And we had to call the guy and like, oh man, can you just tweak this that way and make the fade out mature at 5 seconds evenly? And like, he's like, okay, super. Things get lost in translation. You know what I mean?
I've had some differences with engineers, and I was just reading actually this book. I gotta hold this up because it's a sweet picture of Hendrix. See that book, man? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, and he was reading about what a perfectionist in the studio, talking about how on Electric Ladyland he just wanted to get it right, and the other albums were rushed. And I think about that stuff all the time, like how they used to make records. If you were to get a record deal, it's like you could spend, when they say, oh, we made this record in only 6 months, or we only made this, it's like, yeah, but you were in the studio all day long with an endless budget.
Right.
Yep.
And now you go to a studio, you pay let's say $500 a day, and
something like that. Not including mixing, mastering, all that good stuff.
And you get in there, and then you want to change a note or tweak something, and it's like, they're not invested in your record. That's how I felt. Right. That's how I felt.
It's exactly right. And like and a lot of the times, for me, it's like sometimes when you're recording, you want to warm up. You want to really get yourself situated. And a lot of times the room is actually it influences me. Like different rooms influence how I play and what I think musically. And sometimes that takes a few hours, maybe even a couple of days in ideal situations to get that proper vibe going. It pays to have your own studio, and so there's definitely advantage to that, but you take what you
where'd you guys go in the past?
We did the Bridge Sound and Stage in Somerville with Alex Allenson, who was he was awesome to work with, very nice guy. He knows his craft really well. The problem that I came across, and this has nothing to do with Alex, he goes, what do you want to sound like? And we knew we were kind of a funky group, and we were kind of like, let's do kind of like a funk record, I guess, but in our own way. But he said, what kind of sounds do you want? And I mentioned, I really like Jack White and the White Train. I like what he does with his vocals. And I was like, oh, maybe some kind of vocal thing that Jack does. But I didn't say vocal. I just said Jack White. And he ended up putting distortion on the bass, which for funk record, that's a no-no.
But
it was sort of our fault because we weren't really specific with him with what we wanted. We only did 13 hours over 2 days. We were burnt out quickly. It was just, but I still think it was good. I still had fun doing it, and it really got us, we figured next time, let's just do it ourselves and take the time. And now we're more comfortable doing that.
Right.
Yeah. But
now, when
the studio. Yeah.
Oh, no, I was going to say, one of the things that I would love to do, and I feel like, no one's getting paid to do this, so there's really no incentive, sitting down with the producer, going out to lunch, discussing the album, discussing influences. I feel like there's the time required to really make it a collaborative effort between the engineer and to say, hey, what guitar sounds are we trying to get, or oh, you know, that record. And really, I feel like it takes a lot more care than is allowed to be given in 10 hours. Oh, you got to get it right in 10 hours.
There's a process too. It's like you need time, like you just said, like there is a period where you need to actually the producer engineer needs to get familiar with your music, what your style is, what you know what I mean. So that takes time too. And without the funds, that process kind of gets compromised, and you have to just kind of do it. So, and then again, that's why I keep going back and forth between the pros and cons, doing it yourself versus just, you do feel like the studio quality professional stuff with the studio. But if you can't spend enough time with the engineer to really hone in what you're looking for, sometimes that can suffer a little bit. But it's all up to the person, the artist, and what they want to get out of it.
For sure. Did you guys find, because I found this myself a little bit, where I'm blown away by the gear when I walk in the studio oftentimes. Mm-hmm. I plug in, we get some decent sounds in the room, your headphones, okay, everything's sounding good. But then when I hear the playback, it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up, all this gear, all this stuff. And I go, it kind of sounded better on the demo when we did it in the piece.
Right. Yeah.
That could be multiple things. Maybe it just wasn't like, I know like the very first take, the raw tracks, they don't sound good at all because there's just nothing. It's just completely unedited, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So the raw tracks, and plus they when they record, they keep the volume really low to give themselves a ton of headroom too. So it's like, we did that first with the EP. We heard it. I'm like, this seems like really quiet. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. You need room for headroom during the mastering process. So I don't know if that's what you experienced, but that's
I just feel like a record is such a personal thing to a band that the ego of the engineer or producer, if anybody's going to have the ego, the band should have the ego because they're right. Like I was just watching have you seen Life in 12 Bars, the Eric Clapton documentary?
I saw like the first 10 minutes of it, and I'm about to go back to it because it's
so on Showtime, there's actually Showtime's free during the quarantine, or at least for a few weeks. There's a lot of good free documentaries on there, and one of them's that. And he says in the studio for I think it was the first Cream record, the guitar, the engineer put the mic right on the amp, and he's like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, this is how we do it." He goes, "I want my guitar to sound like you're in the crowd listening to me." He's like, "Move it back." Yeah. And he had some differences with the engineer, and hey, he was right.
Wow.
Clapton's a pioneer. I mean, he's incredible. I just heard on YouTube it was him and Dr. John doing Right Place, Wrong Time. Yeah. And Clapton was just ripping a solo, and it was just so cool to hear that.
He's so good, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say if at any point you want to just come by, like our little studio is in Peabody, and our guitar player John's attic. He has a little studio there. If you ever guys want to come by and record a track and song and see how it sounds, we'd love to help you out. And we love recording, we love songwriting, but we like collaborating too. So just like working on it.
I'm happy you said that because I've been talking to so my girlfriend. I live with my girlfriend, and she's the only one I'm talking to, right? Because no one else is around. We're sitting here. So everything, I tell her most of the stuff about the band. So we're watching another documentary, Echoes in the Canyon. That's all I've been doing is watching music documentaries about the Laurel Canyon in the late 60s and 70s and all the musicians that just lived there and collaborated. You could go down the street and the Mamas and the Papas are writing a song, and then you go this way and someone else. And what you said about collaboration, I just feel like, I don't know if it's the way the world is running now, the pace of it. People just don't get together. I feel like bands, unless you guys have a different experience, like bands hanging out and throwing ideas around. I mean, aside from you guys, we don't have like super strong relationships with other bands.
Right. Yeah.
And I'd like to. I feel like I'd like to have people, hey, come on the bus, let's jam, let's hang out. I don't know.
I think you're exactly. I think you're exactly right.
Oh man,
because I think that's a lot of times. I think people get caught up in, if you're a band and you're trying to make it and whatever, you kind of get caught up in maybe the competitive side of things when really it's I know like I got into music, I'm sure all you guys did the same. It's do it for the love of the music. It's an expression. It's who we are, and it's such a great medium to participate in and hone your craft. And obviously, there's the business side too, which kind of like hinders the creative process, blah, blah, blah. But I think there's a lot to be said about, like you just said, bands collaborating. And I don't think we see enough of that. And I'm totally gung-ho about doing that. And that's part of the reason why we did this podcast, because we want to start reaching out. We've been wanting to do this for a while. Like we really want to interact with the community, because we feel like that's not really being done enough, because in the past, I know even now, that's if you make a record, the art on the cover, there's a collaboration between musicians and artists too. Like this cover behind me, that was done through one of John's friends. She's an artist. So that's kind of like, one example.
Yeah. Right? I just sit here and look at this stuff sometimes, to your point, and I just think of like what an artistic project through and through. You look at it, there's artwork. That could be a painting, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so beautiful. It could be a painting, and then there's a record, and so in Stoneham, where I'm from originally, there was a huge hardcore and like punk rock scene, and we used to call it the Stoneham White Church. I don't really know what it was. It was a church of some sort. But the basement used to have these crazy shows, and it was so grassroots. Kids just going to shows, hanging out. Since then, I've never experienced that again. It was very, I don't know. It had an energy of just kids. And
that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about, man. I remember like in high school, I think more of that happened because everybody was in high school. And like, we didn't really have too many commitments, obviously. It's just, we're in high school, and everybody's hanging out anyway. So you go to these shows at churches, like you just said, and there's like 6 bands and everyone kind of commingles. But speaking more on the collaboration point, I know like our bands, you can look at each of our styles. Like Derek came from more of a folky kind of background and really mellow acoustic, and he used this example a lot with the song Backwards Lateral. That was originally like a folk song. It wasn't funky at all.
Right.
And
it was supposed to be like, it was almost like a Latin feel, and it was like me playing just by myself. And and I handed it over to Steve. I was like, this is a song that I have, and we don't even remember how it happened or why. All we know is that he added some sort of funk bass over it, and I was like just blown away. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And and then the other guys hopped in and they put their 2 cents in. So that's one example of what collaboration can do in one band. So and when you said earlier, that really kind of got me excited on thinking of that process, but now incorporating it in multiple other bands. Like, let's incorporate this process, but let's branch off. Now let's go see what John's doing. Let's go see what his guys. Let's get in the studio with him and see what we can crank out. Because that's really at the end of the day is the point of all this, is we're trying to make really good music and be the most creative possible. And I think there's a little bit of resistance sometimes between bands collaborating for whatever reason. But I know we're totally not about that. We love collaborating. We love reaching out to the community to see what we can make.
No, I can't even tell you how like excited I was at that house party when like you came up and just played with us for a couple songs. Yeah. Like I know in your head you're like, you were like, I don't know these songs, but
that was fun. That was a lot of fun, man. No, but see, that's what
it was so good. It was so fun to play with you,
Yeah, there's not, like you were saying though, there's not enough of that happening, I don't think.
And that's the magic of it all.
Sitting in. Right, yeah, people sitting in and playing and jamming. I feel like the inspiration that comes from that is, I mean, there's no dollar sign you can put. Like, you can go to a studio and you can pay for the room, you can do all that stuff, but just people that are excited getting together, making stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You can't, you can have the best gear in the world, but sometimes it just takes a bunch of people that are friendly, hanging out, being like, yo, check this out. Someone gets excited, you add something, I add something, and the next minute.
Dude, that's what it is, man. Yeah. I think that's the whole purpose here behind music and collaboration.
You know what though, too? And I'm sorry not to cut you off, Steve, but like just a quick thought in my mind is that like when you're playing a show at a venue with a bunch of bands, I feel like there's a lot of resistance between each band enjoying the other band. Like, it's almost like a lot of bands sit back and they're like, well, our set was pretty good, and now this band's playing, and I'm going to go sit in the other room and stuff. But man, like, when when you guys went up there, and I think it was at Opus the last time we played, you guys pulled out "She Loves You" by the Beatles. I was like a freaking fanboy.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, and I thought it was so ballsy because nobody plays early Beatles songs. They play the later ones. They do the real popular ones. And you guys nailed it. You killed it. And I was like, oh man, that's something else. Man. Amazing.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah. That was a fun show, man.
Yeah, the turnout wasn't really what we hoped.
Was that the night it snowed, a snowstorm that night?
No,
I think one of the other bands dropped off, right?
Yeah, it was right before Halloween, and we were just. It was a Thursday night. Like I think it was actually, I do remember it was October 17th. I remember the date specifically. It was a Thursday night, and we were expecting Salem to be just crowded. We went outside, and there was nobody in the streets.
It was cold. It was really cold.
It was cold. Yeah.
People weren't out walking around.
But yeah, you guys killed it that night for sure. I had a good time. Yeah, regardless of turnout. Yeah. And sometimes that happens. It's not, and that goes for any kind of performing, right? Even stand-up comedy, whatever. You'll get a bad turnout. You get a good time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? That's a cool venue. That's one of the cooler ones around. Sure.
Yeah, I feel good about that definitely. Every time I play there. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a question for you guys. Speaking of the Beatles and collaborations and all that, I always found it so amazing about the Beatles. I want to tie this into your band and my band. How multiple personalities could exist within the Beatles, like such creative forces. And when you talk about collaborating, like resistance to, sometimes people watching other bands with their arms folded.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why the Beatles was able to thrive is the fact that maybe egos, came to the surface later, but early on, it was just that healthy competition of, I'm going to allow you to exist. I'm going to exist, and the group is better for it.
It's really, and it's
so rare.
Yeah, like I think success is an equation, and it's that how long can you keep your ego in check before it takes you over, and then I think as long as you do that, you're successful. And I think you just made a good point with the Beatles. I think they had their egos in check because they were all equally successful. But then towards the end, they're like, I wrote this, and then that always leads to a downfall, and then everybody loses. So, and that happens.
And that's why, especially with our band, every album we release, written by the Cosmic Vultures. Right, bottom line, I don't even give a shit who wrote what, who brought in what. There are times when I'll walk in with 3 song ideas. I'll play all 3 of them, and John and Steve and are looking at me, and they're like, all right, cool, and then John will start a riff, and then we'll just jam one out for the rest of the night, and I'm sitting there like, well, what the fuck? But I get it. Sometimes you just gotta go with the way the room flows and stuff, and put your ego aside. It's tough sometimes, but
that's when you get the best material. And I think I really like this kind of topic because it's like when you see it, it. Like, and I think of like Dave Chappelle Block Party. Ever see that? It's like a collaboration of ours, stuff like that. It's like you always see the best. Like even like thinking back to the Renaissance, that whole blending of all those artists back in should know the year of the Renaissance, but it's when during that period, that was one of the most influential periods for art because there was so much collaboration going on at that time.
Yeah, I think those types of environments just breed it.
It just it breeds magic. You know what I mean? And I think the key here in using the example for ego, people let the egos get in the way. And sure, hey, maybe they can make a little more money here and there, but the art suffers, and the art is where it could be. And I think that's that's what it should be. It should be at its full potential. Let's keep the egos in check. Let's collaborate because we can build. It's actually exponential what you can create versus on your own.
And like you said, towards the end of the Beatles especially is like Lennon had that story of Paul having all these hits. It was always a Paul song, #1 single or whatever all the time. And at one point he said, let's put Revolution in for a single. And they said, no, it's too slow. It's off the White Album. It's too slow. We go, all right, we'll make it into a rock song then. He changed it to another version, still didn't make it. And then, Paul, they released Let It Be, and Paul has like, a string, Get Back is his, The Long and Winding Road is his, all these #1 hits. And he's just like, all right, sitting on the sidelines, kind of like, what about my stuff? And stuff. And but in the end, it's like, you got to look over and say, those are the best songs we came up with at the time, and those are the ones that are, I feel like, I can't speak for the Beatles obviously because they're an anomaly, but it's like in John's case, he's like, it's time to grow up and do my own thing. but you're so popular, you're so good, you guys are so great. Wouldn't you want to keep it together for longer to just keep it going, even though you have those problems? You know, you play well together. So it's a weird thing. It really is.
It definitely is weird. And like you said, they are an anomaly. But what I find so fascinating about them is the fact that they could just coexist for even before all that happening, that they could do that. And no one's going to ever sound like the Beatles or be the Beatles, but to even see the dynamic of it and then emulate the dynamic, not so much the music. No one's going to, make better songs than they did, right? But to see, okay, if you're allowed to be a writer, I'm a writer, this and that, it's not I am the writer and you're the band. You know what I'm saying? If you kind of emulate the structure and the dynamic and maybe get some of that magic of, if it's all me, I might not have that bridge the song needed, or that one lyric that kept fucking me up. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. So for Kooked Out, I'm always like, it started with me and other guys. So the current lineup, none of those guys were in the band early on. And then Chris joined in, the other guys joined in. So especially now that we have somewhat of a solid lineup, I'm always encouraging, like, come in with ideas, come in with songs. It's like to create that dynamic the best we can,
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's tough to be the guy to walk in and just kind of be like the idea guy. If you don't have ideas that day, it's like, well, now what, So that's why it's like, it's when sometimes I'll bring in a song, and I remember I brought in a song for our first full length, which is Mariana, and it was called Diamonds, and it was a slow ballad. I figured the album needed some sort of a ballad. And then Steve was like, yeah, but let's change the rhythm to this. And the drums changed, and this changed, and that changed. And John said, how about that? And how about this chord or whatever? And before I knew, at the end of the day, it was this amazing collaboration. And the song rewrote itself throughout the day. And I was like, wow, if I didn't have these guys and their brains, the song would have been something else, and it's incredible how it works.
It is, because everyone's seeing the same idea differently, right?
Exactly. So, different perceptions coming together creates magic, I feel like,
Yeah, no, that's one of the things too. When I see it, other bands, I feel like you can see it sometimes, like there's a couple bands, I won't name bands, I'm not going to talk shit about other people's bands. They're all good. Yeah. Sometimes you can tell when it's someone's band, and, in the past, maybe Kooked Out has seemed like my band, especially early on, because the members kept changing. But now I'm especially working hard to make these other guys like sing lead on the song. I'll sit back, you do the solo on this one, I'll do the solo on the next one, whatever.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I'm really trying to be conscious of that. Not so it's fabricated, but just, I don't want it to be a solo project.
Right.
It's not fun.
Exactly.
Right. Absolutely.
You need some dialogue musically.
And that's what's great about the Beatles. You listen to an album like Revolver, it's like you got Paul, then John song, then a Paul song, then a George song, then a John song. It's like, oh my God, it's just so much
Revolver. Band. John, are you a big Beatles fan?
Me?
Yes.
Is that a question?
Can you tell, Steve?
That's a dumb question. No, that's all right. That's a stupid question.
I am a very big Beatles fan.
Okay, we are back. John is sideways.
Yeah. Why? I had my phone the same way the last time, and it.
Maybe the start. Maybe there you go.
So we left off with you saying, Steve, about John liking the Beatles, big fan.
Yeah.
So where was that going?
Where was it going with that?
We were talking about collaborations and who has what song and how they were able to on Revolver. Everyone,
Yeah, I think I was just gonna. Oh yeah. So I was asking if you're a big Beatles fan. Obviously you are. I was gonna say, do you have a favorite Beatles album? Because when Derek mentioned Revolver, I always like, if I had to choose favorite one, Revolver always comes up on my short list.
You say Pepper too. You say Pepper all the time, man.
Sgt. Pepper's is it's if I had to pick my top 3 favorite Beatles albums of all time, Sgt. Pepper's, Revolver for sure. Oh, man, I guess White Album, the White Album. Sgt. Pepper's, Revolver.
I have one off the bat. It's always been my favorite album. It's always been my favorite Beatles album. It's Rubber Soul. That's my heart, because
but
that was the turning point for the Beatles. It has that Bob Dylan and Marijuana influence. Like,
yeah. It's great album. I mean, it's a monumental album and a pivotal album. Yeah. I gotta say, me picking, I think I go through phases more than always loving one more than the other. I kind of cycle through. But I gotta say, I really love the album with the Beatles.
The second one, wow.
Yeah, man, the early stuff, and it's got some covers on it. It's got some good originals, and that influence of like some of that doo-wop and early rock and roll stuff, and you can almost hear like that Everly Brothers influence and stuff on it. I don't know, that early sound to me. I mean, I like all of it, but that early influence of early 50s rock and roll in there, I dig that.
I could definitely hear that in your sound too. Your band sound has that. I mean, it's a mix of a lot of things, but I always noticed that about you guys. And when you pulled out the early Beatles song, I was like, there is no other band in this area that could pull it off like you guys could. And I was like, and like I said, I always said it was ballsy, but it was like, oh man, like I wanted you guys to play the next one will be like, na 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 na, from me to you. Like I wanted to hear all the early ones, and I was like, just keep playing early Beatles songs to me, man.
It's so good, man. Never has a band had more. I mean, the deep cuts are good too, but just the hits, the sheer number of hits it's amazing. It truly is.
Yeah. And the one thing I say to people too, who have this image of the Beatles as this like boy band, black and white boy band, I'm like, you need to go through all of their albums, because in my personal opinion, the deep tracks for me have always been my favorites. Somebody says to me, hey, what's your favorite Beatles song? For some reason, She Said off Revolver, it just puts me into in a space somewhere. It's like, oh my God, that riff.
I love that song.
You know, it's the deep tracks, because I had Beatles 1 when it came out back in 2000. And 27 number one singles, and I was like, what about the number 2s and the ones that didn't become singles? You know, it's like
so many of those though. That's crazy. People can just mention the hits without talking about the whole album itself, because I love talking about albums as a whole. You know, it's like I'm sure you guys do too, but like Derek was saying, there's like tons of good songs on Revolver. And Your Bird Can Sing.
Oh man, just For No One. I'm Only Sleeping.
Yeah, I have the
one of my favorite songs of all time probably is off that Revolver. I'm Only Sleeping. Freaking amazing.
Check this out, man. This is the white album. The extra tapes, double vinyl, man. My mother got me this.
Dude, I'm so psyched you collect vinyl. That's so cool. I have my own.
And then these are all just like 45s. Like, hold on, I'll tell these up, because they're pretty sick. Like even the artwork, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's great. Just like, I don't know. The look of it, the sound. And I'm not one of those people. I like CDs. I'll listen to music on any medium, but there's something like we said about the artwork and having the record.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because I'm not trying to be like a hipster or something. I
get you though.
My dad had records, you know, like I like records.
It's just something about holding vinyl in your hand, even if it's shrink wrapped still, just keeping it shrink wrapped and just looking at it in the corner and just holding it, the weight of the record. Yeah. I mean, even back in the day, the CDs, when I had the booklet, looking through all the lyrics and stuff, it's just, the whole package is so important for me. I mean, Spotify is great now because you can just play anything at any time, but there's something about the artwork and holding it in your hand. It's just it's unexplainable.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's the Spotify thing. Something does get lost in it's super convenient. Obviously, you can go anywhere with it. It sounds amazing, certainly. But there's something like we've been talking about. Something gets lost along the way, and a huge part of that. And like you, John and Derek probably too, is I love the artwork that comes with the music, because that's always historically been part of an album, is the art too. If you want to open it up, you want to see those crazy pictures. Like think of Tool Lateralis. Think about how much insane artwork is on that album. It's such a part of the experience that you don't. Yeah, I know you can get the digital artwork and all that stuff, sure. But there's something to be said about the physical copy and really that tactile experience of seeing it right firsthand. And that's why I collect vinyl too, because I'll admit I don't really bust the vinyl out too much, just because I tend to damage them.
Go the
sometimes.
easy route. You go the easy route and put it Spotify
No,
on.
I do that as well sometimes.
I'll be like, you know what? Once in a while I will though. I'll bust it out, but I feel like it's in it. Also, every time you drag the needle, it's just like it wears just a tiny bit on there. So it's
I have my favorite album of all time in my hands right now. My number one album of all time. This album to me it's a 7-song album. I love short tracked albums that are still lengthy.
Right.
Something about this album just puts me in my happy place. So let's see if you guys can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Asia by Steely Dan.
I think you may have mentioned that to me once at one show. It probably came up if we were. I think you had mentioned that being one of your favorites.
If I find someone who likes music as much as I do, it probably comes up in conversation. Yeah, I'm a big Steely Dan fan. I love now. If we're talking about going into a studio and listening to a studio album of quality, it's like you put headphones on, the crispness of their sound is just unmatched. It's like, I know in Asia, I think they had like, or maybe it was the one after the Gaucho, they had like 18 engineers, which was like unheard of at the time and still is to me. And man, it's just, if you watch the documentary on Asia on YouTube, they're talking about how they spent like months upon months on like one specific drum sound to make sure it's punchy and perfect. And it's like, I wish I had the time for that.
I just wish on the other side of this quarantine, I'm hopefully going to be making some moves to, I'm not chasing the rock star thing, but to try to make all my money through performing. And that's why we're booking so many shows, because of that very reason, man. I want to see if to push the boundaries, like if you guys feel this way too, and I'm not saying me personally that I could do something great, but what could I do if I dedicated to 100%? Because right now, let's be honest, I feel like I'm at 50%. It's like where you're talking about months on end to make an album. I mean, I've never really had that experience to be able to do that. And I just feel like bands of that time, there was a developmental phase, right? Where you could get signed to a record deal, like Motown, for instance, right? They had dance choreography teaching, like classes. Then they had the Temptations had how many releases before My Girl? Before.
Oh man, they were struggling. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I just think
it takes time. It takes time.
Yeah, and I just feel like now everything you could say, oh, we can make a record on your own and put it out. It's like you can, but that developmental phase of playing a lot of shows, the Beatles in Germany, right? Doing those 8-hour club dates and 5 to 7 days a week. They got good, man. The book Outliers. Have you ever read the book Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell?
No.
He talks about basically the 10,000 hour rule of how anyone at the pinnacle of their game usually amassed.
I've heard of that, the 10,000 hour rule for sure.
And I forget who it was that's referencing the Beatles, but they said when they left Liverpool, they were okay. When they came back, they were great. And I was like, dude, they just played 5 days a week. The lunch show, the late afternoon show, the evening, and the late night show. And they did that 5 days a week. And it's like they got good at playing together.
And it's a testament for them not getting sick of each other even sooner. Right? And that's another thing too, is some people talk about is like people, especially for the Cosmic Vultures, we've been together since 2016. That sometimes it's just too long for a band to stay together. 4 years, you know what I mean? And we feel like we're not even touching we're not even at the creative level yet, but we're like Steve and I will joke around like, when is our Sgt. Pepper going to come around? Stuff like that.
No, absolutely. And that's actually a really good point, because I think when we see a band that we like, we assume that they just pop down from the sky in that form, right? Oh, the Beatles are the Beatles that we know. It's like, no, well, if you saw them early on, maybe you caught them at a bad show or maybe whatever, and they developed into what they are, and then you realize they've been a band for 5 to 10 years before.
Yeah, man, it really is a testament to that 10,000 hour rule. John, the band Fish.
Oh yeah.
They, people, they're like they'll sell out Madison Square Garden like nothing, these days. Even now, over 30 years later, I think it's over 30 years. But in the early days, they would just play college dorm after college. They would play in colleges, bars every single day of the week for years and years. And they literally didn't stop touring until like the 2000 New Year's show. And they played so much. They quit their jobs. and they really put in the groundwork, and that's how they got, eventually they were. So
these guys were using hockey sticks as like microphone stands and stuff.
Yeah.
See, I'm a huge believer. I mean, I do think there's the occasional internet sensation, but sometimes I feel bad for bands that are looking for the lucky break, because in this book, or a lot of successful people, they'll all tell you the same thing. Is it luck, or is it a lot of hard work that just led to what seems to be luck later? Like if you're really good, people are going to turn their heads. That's goes without saying. Yeah, you might get a lucky break, but like, for instance, so we bought the bus, right? And I'm thinking to myself, well, if let's say now we can drive to Nashville and go play a show if we wanted to, and who we meet in Nashville, you can say, oh, well, that's luck. We met so-and-so and they hooked us up with so. But if we didn't go there, each decision informs the next decision to me. And I just think I don't see people being honest with themselves about that. They think like, oh, well, no, I can just do what I'm doing and it's going to happen. It doesn't happen. And to the point, again, not to kind of dwell back on this point, but speaking of my father earlier, one of the things he tells me all the time is like, if you're going to do it, you got to go for it. Yeah. It does. No one knocks on your door. So seeing that kind of stuff firsthand was inspirational to me. And obviously he had a big record collection. He probably should have been a musician, honestly. He doesn't play music, but
I'll get out.
I mean, he has the best record collection going. And
get out of here. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. And I just see that, and I think there's a lot of good talent, but I don't see the other steps being taken for a lot of people. And that's why I maybe haven't done it yet, but we're planning on it, man. We're gonna give it a real try before. Yeah,
you guys are really doing it right. You guys are getting ready, and like we said early on in the podcast, we were just talking about when this hopefully this blows over, where we can leave our houses finally, and we can kind of get on with life. And when that happens, I feel like you guys are really set to kind of pull a slingshot move. We got all this pent up energy.
I hope so.
And you know what? Yeah, out of all the bands I've known and met, and look, we talked before. Some bands they're not friendly and stuff like that. I'm fucking rooting for you guys. You guys put in the work, and everyone can see it, how much work you put in. When you're at the studio you guys play at or practice at, you guys are there like early in the morning, all day long. You guys deserve it. You guys deserve it. Whatever comes to you.
Thank you. And honestly, I'm not just saying it. I feel the same way about you guys. Like, there's very few bands that we click with, both personally and musically, and even though the sound's different, but I'm saying to dig each other's music to some degree, and, really be able to take inspiration, even though your sound's different from our sound, be able to get inspired by it and be like, yeah, this is good. And we're able to fit on the same bill, but not step on each other's toes as far as
right. Exactly.
Because that's another thing with the music scene that I think is kind of a big problem. Like putting together bills, I don't know. I have so many opinions on how things are being operated, and maybe I should keep my mouth shut. But I see bills that are just like the music scene. It's like, these clubs are all closing and stuff, and then you message. I don't know if this happens to you guys. Certain clubs, I message or email 20 times. Oh, we can't give you this show and this, that. And I see the bills they're putting together, and then 2 months later, the club closes. And I'm not saying that we would have saved the club. But I'm going, this is why you guys aren't open to putting, like, if someone comes to you with a bill with good bands and says, listen, I think this is going to work, it's easy to get on their website and research if the band's putting in work or not. And
We've been put on bands with like, Blink-182 type bands, and we're like, what are you even doing? Are you focusing on your club? Because this makes no sense.
Hip hop, we play with hip hop bands too. Like, what? Why?
Yeah.
Why'd you put us between two hip hop groups? Like, that makes no sense. I like hip hop, but it's just doesn't make sense.
Because in theory, some people, and maybe this works at a festival more than at a local club. Oh, well, this band will bring out people, and then those fans will see your band. They'll leave.
Yeah, I guess Yeah, most their, these people booking these shows, obviously their primary goal is to get as many people buying beers as possible. They're really just about numbers, and that's totally, and that's just a fact of life with the music industry. But that's not to say there's nothing artists can't do about that, because part of that is they're catering to what's in demand, or what people like, blah blah blah. But that's kind of what we can change at the grassroots level to make local artists more in demand, and kind of try and bring the scene back, because it's not like the 90s. It's like pre-smartphone, and no one had Netflix, and it's like you had to go out because there's nothing else to do.
There's nothing else to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I refuse to believe that live music is dead by any means.
Oh yeah, people
still want to go out. You know what I mean? And I think it's definitely worth trying to optimize that and start creating more of a demand, and kind of build a community up, because like a lot of what happens is there's no communities anymore. Like I said, going back again, the 90s, whatever, you had more isolation with you had the Seattle scene, you had
or the punk scene in the 70s.
You had like parts of New York, Boston, Nashville. They were all incubating, they're just developing their own sound independently. But now there's no real scene, because everything is super connected. So it's like a double-edged sword, I guess, with technology. Everything's connected, but then I think the whole scene sounds the same.
Yeah, and going back to what we were saying too, like the scenes and everything, like technically we're all involved in a scene. We may have different genres and things like that, but like there's not a lot of camaraderie. And people always say like, who do you like better, the Beatles or the Stones? And I'm like, do you realize they weren't really in competition? They were buddies. Right.
And the Beatles gave them
the Beatles gave them a song to record. Like I want to be your man early on. Like, and of course Lennon joked around like we didn't want to give them anything good, joking around. But regardless, like they were buddies. And, you see Mick Jagger hanging out at All You Need Is Love music video. He's in there like singing with them and stuff. Like that's something that we wanted to bring to this, like whatever this is, this podcast, this chat, whatever we're doing. We just want local artists to know that we're all together. Like we feel like sometimes we're a family. We should help each other, because it's better that way,
Yeah, and
it is.
Yeah, and given how, I guess, competitive it can be to, again, to certain places, it's almost like people. I would think if the scene wants to survive, we have to kind of collaborate, and because by ourselves we're doomed. I feel like, you know what I mean. But power in numbers, I feel like with it's given how hard the music scene is now anyway to get shows and get people to come. It's hard enough on your own as in a band, but I think the only answer is collaboration. Let's get the community. Let's get the dialogue going. Let's do more of these podcasts. Let's talk to more artists. Really, let's get together, hang out. Let's record more. I think together we prosper.
100%. I think too, like being able to, if you're a young kid and you're trying to find your clique, being able to lean on the scene. Like I like to speak of those hardcore shows and punk rock things. People were there to hang out, and it's like, it's okay, you weren't the popular group, you weren't a cheerleader or football player or whatever the hell it was. You're hanging out at these punk rock shows, and it's like everyone's kind of there, and you just become part of it. And the other thing too is it nurtures talent, because the scene's playing and you have the bigger bands on the scene, but they can see, hey, so-and-so, we're friends with it. We'll let you play and open the set. And maybe a year from now, that band's the one selling out the club. So with promoters, you see it all the time where they see the number, right? Okay, how many people can you bring? Mm-hmm. What I would see, if I was setting up a show, I'd say, okay, you might not bring those numbers now, but you're a good band. So if we get you in front of people, you have your 2 or 3 other bands that can maybe bring people so the club doesn't go out of business. But you got to nurture and bring these other bands up, because
And that was always the thing of like, some bands are like, the goal is to open for a bigger band, and to get an opportunity to do that is literally everything nowadays, especially around here. But speaking of that, I have a couple questions for you. If you could open for any band in the history of music, what band would it be?
In the history of music?
In the history of music.
Oh man, that's a nightmare question, because all the bands I'm going to name would blow us away. Oh man, maybe just because I would like to watch the show. The Doors.
Oh yeah.
That would be freaking sweet, man.
You know, I mean, I again, it's such a tough question because I just feel like I'm such a fanboy to some of these bands. And it'd be hard to even think like be part of it, not as a fan, but just so I could be there. I'd say I'd see the Doors, just because I feel like any band that has that, as much as I love the Beatles and all these other bands that were just great, you know, great songs, whatever. The Doors had like this aura and atmosphere to it all.
Mm-hmm.
Or like even like the Sex Pistols in the heyday, where it's the music's whatever, but the vibe and the energy is just so chaotic and crazy. I always wanted to incorporate that into Kooked Out, and I feel like we have to some degree, but I want to do it even more, like a little bit of chaos in there. I like that.
Yeah, I can see it now. I can see it now with the Whiskey A Go-Go, the Doors with Kooked Out.
Yeah. You know? Hell yeah, dude. That sounds good to me.
I'd go see
All right,
that.
if you could name, now I know this is going to be tough because like you, for me especially, I'll change my mind every day about stuff like this. But if you could name 3 people, dead or alive, that you want to have dinner with, who would it be?
Dinner with, oh man, Leonardo da Vinci. Does it have to be musicians?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Anybody.
Oh man, that's another tough question, man. I'd say, yeah, Leonardo da Vinci, because listen to his double tape. He's just did everything, man. From musician, maybe Jimi Hendrix, and some historical figure. I feel like, dude, that's a tough question, man. I'm trying to think.
I know.
I'm trying to think of a third. I got.
Yeah,
I'll have to come back to that in like a minute. Give me another.
Hey, you know what? Da Vinci and Hendrix is a really good start. So
that's a good meal. That's a good meal.
Honestly, maybe a president, like I don't want to say Kennedy, maybe like Abraham Lincoln or something. I'll say that for now, only because it could be any historical figure that's not living, just because they kind of tap into a different time zone,
right,
and try to understand what's going on in their head, and you know what I mean.
Absolutely,
I got you.
Absolutely. I was thinking about this question earlier, and I was like, I want some whacked out people at my table, like Salvatore Dali.
That's a good one, man.
He's just a strange guy. He's like walking.
Mofo.
He's like his pictures of him walking his pet armadillo.
Yeah, I read something that he would sleep with like a rock on his stomach. Did you hear that? So the rock would fall off when he moved to wake him up, so he could record his dreams in like notebooks.
Oh, that's so cool.
Really so that's cool. That's a good. See, if I thought about that question longer, I'll come up with some probably.
Dali invented the alarm clock, but he invented it with a rock.
Yeah. I hope that story is true because I love it. I don't know if he really did that, but it's definitely cool to think that he would.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But so yeah, man. I mean, this has been awesome. When we decided to do this, you were literally one of the first names I thought of. You actually probably were the first name I thought of. Just because your love of music, and you have such a great energy about you, and I love your band, Kooked Out. Like I said before, I'm really rooting for you guys. Anything we can do to help. I don't know how and what capacity, but I guess just the camaraderie would be good enough. But we hope the best for you guys, and see what happens when this quarantine ends.
Yeah. Same to you guys, man. I appreciate that, and I really do. We'll talk today, but I really want to connect even more in the future and do this together just as much as we can. Get on the bus, dude. There's plenty of room. There's plenty of room.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't wait. I can't wait till this bus is on the road. I want to hop on.
Hey, if you guys decide to do it. If you guys do a tour and you guys it'd be fun to bring another band, let us know. We'd love to.
Like certain bills, if we ever have the opportunity where we can, you know what I mean? Because sometimes it's like we'll put you with the local band, but I want to get to the point where we can have the whole bill and show up.
Right.
I think that would be awesome, man. And by the way, I want to mention, it's funny, I'm starting a podcast as well.
Sweet.
With JTK Radio. I don't know if you saw me post that in the past, but you guys will have to come on and do something similar. And
yeah, we'd love to.
That'd be sick.
John, we got to ramp up our Beatles page. We haven't done anything with that in a while.
Oh, dude, I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. We got to do more stuff like this. And I feel like the scene we are yearning for is the scene we have to create. We have to create it.
Yeah, man.
Let's just create it.
Let's do it. Let's bring this thing to reality here. Let's make it. Because like you said, no one's going to knock on your door. No one's going to do it for you. It's up to us, the community, to do this ourselves. Because government ain't going to do it. Your neighbor's not going to do it. We have to do it. And I think we're fully capable of doing it. I think if we stick with the keys here, collaboration, let's work together. Let's see what we can create as a community. Let's not be isolated, like people sometimes tend to be with the music scene. And I think magic can definitely happen.
Absolutely,
absolutely.
Yeah. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Well, listen, man. Stay healthy and take care of yourself, and let's keep in touch and do some great things.
Yeah, you too, guys. I'll see you. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much, John.
All right, peace, boys.
Peace.
Later, man.
Yeah.